Hello, friends. The 811th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. The offensive of Russian troops in the north of the Kharkiv region has been ongoing for the fifth day. It has been said for a long time that the Russians are preparing to launch a new strike in the direction of Kharkiv, and there were also assumptions that it would be from the northern border of the region. But despite this, in 4 days of fighting, Russian troops were able to capture about a dozen villages and go to the outskirts of the city of Vovchansk, which until the fall of 2022 was already under Russian control. So far, Russian forces are advancing only in the border zone. However, the fact that it is being carried out at all despite numerous assurances from the authorities that the border is locked has already caused a rather sharp reaction from the public. The authorities are being asked questions: where are the defensive structures? Why the border was not even mined? Let me remind you that the Ukrainian military stated this, and we will return to this issue below. According to data from the Ukrainian side, the Russians advanced in the village of Gliboki, where the Russian flag was hung yesterday. The Ukrainian military telegram channel Deep State writes that as a result of yesterday's battles, the enemy managed to capture either the entire village or its main part. Studentska Street and its parallel street are in question. Previously, Russian military telegram channels announced the capture of Gliboki. I note that this settlement opens the enemy's road to Lipsy, from which it is 17 kilometers, to the northern outskirts of Kharkiv. It is also reported that the Russians managed to capture the village of Lukyantsy. This information is also confirmed by the General Staff. Due to the intense fire impact of the enemy, namely airstrikes using 10 guided air bombs against our units, in order to save the lives of Ukrainian military personnel, positions in the area of the village of Lukyantsy were changed. Fighting continues, the department said in a statement. At the same time, the village of Yevhenii, which was previously considered captured, remains under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces, writes Deep State. In general, over the past 24 hours, enemy advances have been recorded in this area up to 9.35 kilometers wide and to a depth of up to 2.2 kilometers. In another part of the Kharkiv region, today the Russian Ministry of Defense announced the capture of the village of Bogruvatka, southwest of Vovchansk. Apparently, the village was captured as part of attempts to cut off the city along the highway from the south. According to Deep State, Bogruvatka is partially in the gray zone. Ukraine did not confirm the loss of the village. Meanwhile, the Russians are beginning to surround the city of Vovchansk, said Skorik, a deputy of the Kharkiv Regional Council. According to the latest information from Vovchansk, the enemy is advancing. The city is beginning to be surrounded on one side. Very complex positional battles are taking place. The Ukrainian defense forces are defending under heavy fire, constant arrivals of controlled air bombs and assault operations, Skorik said. According to him, after 4 days of the offensive, there was not a single surviving building left in the city. The head of the Kharkiv police, Tomoshko, also said that Vovchansk is turning into Bakhmut or Maryanka. Vovchansk has already been practically destroyed. There are street battles in the city, and it is under constant shelling, said the head of the local administration, Gambarashvili. According to him, people are being evacuated to Kharkiv, where they are being housed in dormitories. The editor-in-chief of the website, Censor Budanov, as well as the Russian Volunteer Corps, stated yesterday that the Russians had entered the territory of the Vovchansk meat processing plant, from where they were trying to drive them out. The Deep State map indicates that the northern part of Vovchansk has moved into the gray zone. The morning report from the General Staff says that the fighting in Vovchansk continues. Ukrainian defenders are combing the urban areas of the village of Vovchansk. Combat operations continue. The situation is under control. Enemy losses amount to 164 people and 25 pieces of equipment, the General Staff reports. At the same time, a lieutenant of the Ukrainian Armed Forces with the call sign, Alex, reports that the Russians still control the meat processing plant in the city. According to him, Over the past 24 hours, they managed to clear several streets of the city from the Russian military. The governor of the Kharkiv region, Yevhenii, reports that shooting battles continue in Vovchansk on the northern outskirts. Up to 200 people remain in the city. The Ukrainian armed forces are trying to push back the Russians along the entire border where the breakthrough occurred. Regarding the construction of fortifications, he promised not only to hold a meeting with contractors and report on it, but also then to hold a press conference where journalists could ask questions. He says that construction was difficult. More than 30 pieces of equipment were damaged by shelling, and 4 civilian builders were killed. Let me remind you that yesterday Yevhenii gave the command to gather all participants in the process of building fortifications in the region amid criticism from the military and the media. Meanwhile, today Deep State published photos of allegedly abandoned building materials for the construction of fortifications near Lipsy. This territory, along with the materials, has already been captured by the Russians. The Ukrainian military said that these barriers had been lying idle since the summer of 2023. We will not draw conclusions. Let them be made by a commission that will consider the integrity of the contractors who built the defensive structures and the responsible persons who should exercise control, wrote the Deep State Telegram channel. Russia may soon launch an offensive near Sumy, head of the main intelligence directorate Budanov, said in an interview with the New York Times. The situation is on the brink. Every hour this situation is approaching critical, Budanov told the newspaper. He also stated that there were no reserves left. All our troops are now either here or in Chasiv Yar. I used everything we have. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone left in reserve, said the head of intelligence. He believes that over the next few days, the Ukrainian armed forces will be able to stabilize the front near Kharkiv, and a Russian offensive will continue for about 3 to 4 days. But after this, the Russian military may launch a new offensive in the Sumy region. He agrees with assessments that near Kharkiv Russia is stretching the already depleted forces of the Ukrainian army, and also trying to sow panic and confusion in the region. Later, already on Ukrainian television, Budanov added that the expected offensive in the Sumy region will develop from the Russian city of Sumy and towards the regional center. From the very beginning, the Russians planned an operation in the Sumy region. As of now, they are holding small groups of forces in the border area. For them, it is the city of Sumy. For our part, it is the Sumy direction, but the situation has not yet allowed them to take active action and begin implementing his plan, Budanov said, without mentioning this time the lack of reserves and the critical situation. By the way, the population is already being evacuated from the Sumy region. We have received information about the preparations for the offensive. The Sumy Regional State Administration communicates with the military command around the clock, and taking this information into account, we act. As an example, the Belopolya community, which is suffering from shelling, whose infrastructure was damaged by shelling, the military recommended evacuation. There, we are carrying it out, says the head of the Regional Military Administration RDOC. Friends, this channel exists solely thanks to your support. If you have the opportunity and desire to support the channel, I will be very grateful to you. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.